Mike Chadwick, Internal Audit.
Jim Vignola, Anchorage Fire Department.
John Rosgowski, English Fire Department.
Elizabeth Jensen, Clerk's Office.
Lucinda Mahoney, CFO.
Elby Gray Jackson, Chair of the Audit Committee.
Debbie Osiander, Chugiak Fire Board of Supervisor member.
George Michaelis, Municipal Audit.
Peter Oskins, Internal Audit.
And, sorry. And first I'd like to start out with thanking Chief Bouchou, and I talked to Alicia about the audit before I even, thought about having the meeting. And I felt comfortable with Ms. Osiander's comments, and I also talked to Ms. Osiander too. But then I talked as a courtesy to Amy, since she's on audit committee, and also that's her area, and got her thoughts, and she felt that we probably should have an audit committee meeting, and I agreed with her, since that was my initial thought anyway, so that's why we're here. Okay, and I want to start out the meeting with number 2. I'd like for internal audit to just give an overview of the audit.
This audit was an addition to our audit plan and is requested by the Municipal Audit Committee. And I think that was based on some concerns that Debbie had when she first got on the Board of Supervisors out there. I would like to point out that it's a nonprofit organization, 2 permanent employees, and the contract doesn't require too much except provide fire service in that area. So we did the audit like we would a normal organization looking for proper internal controls, which you all have to understand is pretty hard to do when there's only 2 employees, one of them being the head of their vehicle maintenance. So Michael, just highlight the high points we found.
Thank you.
We had 6 findings. The first finding on page 2 is lack of segregation of duties. Like Pete was just saying, there was a lack of duties, segregation of duties regarding controls over the accounts payable. Specifically, one person had authority over entering, printing, and signing checks, and approving check payments over $5,000 but less than $10,000. The next finding, finding 2, statement reconciliations were not always done timely for the bank statements and for credit card statements. Finding 3 on page 4 was, you're welcome to.
We just started, Amy.
So
you're
sorry
good.
I'm late.
That's okay. Thank you
can
for
pull
being
a chair
here.
up if you like.
Okay, I like hiding in the back.
Okay.
I'm good.
Finding 3 on page 4, there was a lack of internal controls over purchases made with a debit card. Specifically, we found that 4 individuals were given a debit card, which we found unusual to have a debit card. Finding 4, lack of internal controls over credit cards. There was lack of internal controls over purchases made with a credit card. Specifically, there were 6 individuals who had a credit card, and some of those 6 individuals were some of the same individuals that also had the debit card.
And these are volunteer firemen.
Not
Not
volunteers,
Right.
not staff. Finding 5, the contractor's credit card account was not properly managed. We found that 4 of the 7 credit card statements we reviewed included financial charges and late fees due to late payments or non-payments. The charges totaled $214.81. And our final finding was finding 6, where we found that the contractor's check authorization policy was not always followed. So those were our 6 findings. We had a nice exit conference about 2 months ago or so, where we met with the board and with Chief Bouchou and Alicia Todd and discussed these findings and recommendations. And the board decided to provide their own response in addition to management's response, which is attached as appendix or attachment number 1 from the board, which we attached verbatim.
Thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
And Debbie, you're representing the Board of Supervisors, and want to give you an opportunity to comment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, appreciated the chance to get some additional insight into financial controls. It was a concern of ours because we were in a very unique situation. We've always been short of manpower, but to have a situation where our one employee was elected chief caused us to think, oh my goodness, what now? So we have instituted a number of changes, and we have several changes yet to come. The biggest one is that we now have a contract with a financial firm called Hooper Accounting and Bookkeeping Services, and part of that contract will require reconciliation within 2 weeks. She's also going to be assisting and working on financial matters with Virginia, who's our chief and our administrator. Because of that, we're still in somewhat of a flux situation because we haven't really finalized entirely what the delineation of responsibility will be between the accounting service, which is on a contract for services rendered rather than employee basis, and Virginia. And that problem's been exacerbated because frequently we're a little bit short on daytime emergency runs. And so our paid employee is the primary person responding to the paid EMS runs, which causes some upheaval when you're trying to get financial things done to have to go run to an ambulance call. We also have worked we have eliminated the debit cards. The credit card situation it's been illuminating to me because the department didn't have credit cards or debit cards until about 5 years ago. And then they got the credit cards through Bank of America, but the credit cards were issued based on their personal financial situation, not on the department's money, because Bank of America wouldn't do it that way. But it was set up so that it was, even though the cards were individually issued with their individual financial situation, some of those folks are not real flush, they shared the debt amount on the credit card so that they'd make a payment and there would be delay sometimes in taking payment, so it was a very big mess. So right now, the account is with, the department runs offices with Northrim Bank. And so we're working with Northrim Bank to get a limited number of credit cards based on the account in the bank. And so far, they've been pretty receptive at working with us. They're a local bank, they know the department, and there's a history of banking with them. So we're gonna do that. We do find it necessary to have some kind of credit card, because there's frequently a time when the chiefs or the equipment guy has to make a small purchase. And it seems that this will be the best way. Then the credit cards will be reviewed both by the bookkeeping service, and then we have one member of the Board of Supervisors who has stepped up to do a lot more financial stuff than has been in the past. She is signing now every check, co-sign, so checks are now taking 2 signatures, and she's checking, once we get this credit card thing established, we haven't handed them out yet, the new credit cards, we're still working on that. We'll be working on policies to see who gets those final reports. Let's see, what was the other thing? I think there's one point that internal audit caught where there was a $1,000 check deposited and withdrawn immediately. It's challenging sometimes because there's distinct pots of money. There are the tax dollars, and there's money from the fundraising that belongs to the nonprofit. In that particular case, there was a garage sale fundraiser for bike helmets, and the money was deposited, as I understand it, the money was deposited in the bank account, and then they realized, no, that was an independent fund, it's for bike helmets, which is typically done by our fundraising group, and so it was withdrawn immediately. We are going to be talking about some kind of a regular annual private audit to look at the books, but it's an evolving situation, I'll put it that way. If there's any specific questions that anybody has, I'm more than happy to respond.
Right, thank you, Debbie, and that was my next question. Does anybody have any questions for Debbie right now, or before we go to the fire department?
I just have a comment. Back when I was working at KPMG, what we would do to help small organizations is there's a publication, and it's called Internal Controls for Small Businesses.
Wait a minute, Lucy, I have to write this down, because that's actually exactly what we're looking for.
Right,
Thank
and
you.
what it did is it's just a publication that helps small businesses where there's just one or two people in there, established controls.
Okay.
And probably if you Google it on the internet, you can find it.
Give me the
And
name one more time.
It's just a document called Internal Controls for Small Businesses.
But
It was, when I was at KPMG, I used it. I don't know if it is still a KPMG publication, but I
Okay.
know that there are publications out there, probably even on the AICPA website. Anyways, it's just a suggestion. It might
Okay.
help you, go through
Yeah.
and look at what the best practices are.
We thought about Foraker, but frankly, I pushed for internal audit because in the past I've been so successful working with Pete to get a real look when we had the contract before. And I talked to you and Bill and Amy, and they thought that this
Yeah.
would be the way to go, but, it's challenging when staff is so limited.
Yeah.
And we don't really have anybody who's got the background to do, a real rigid internal control process. But, thanks.
Ms. Timbowski, you had a question?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You had said there's gonna be 2 signers on every check starting now forward. Is that correct? Is the other
Yeah.
one Lisa?
Lisa?
It's Santara? No, who is the other board of supervisors that you said?
Ronnie Sullivan.
Ronnie. Oh, I was thinking Ronnie. but I had Lisa in my mind.
Yeah.
And then,
And then it's a little challenging because she's having some medical issues. So for a time period, I'm gonna do it, which is really uncomfortable because my knowledge of the budget and accounting is not up what it should be, but we're working on it.
sure, and then, I'm assuming, I think, is it Tanya Hooper? I think that's her name.
Yeah, she's the
Tanya.
one.
So she's reconciling every 2 weeks, and then the board of supervisors are getting those reports, you guys?
So far, we've been doing quarterly. We've been doing quarterly financial. So maybe we should do more frequent, I don't know, but we figured that was okay.
I was just wanting to see what kind of oversight the board is gonna have and how routinely you work with it.
Well, we prepare the budget to be submitted. We do reviews on a quarterly basis, and we've been spending a whole lot of time now, because of the building of the fire station, looking at the reserves and capital, that budget. So Alicia knows all 3 of us fairly well.
Okay, thanks.
So, and I have just one comment. The fire department's 2014 budget included 2 half-time positions for the Chugat fire. So,
As far as my understanding is, those are Alicia and who? I don't know, those aren't,
well, it said 2 positions just for the,
but then
Yeah.
we pay those out of our budget, so I don't know why.
We funded them.
yeah, $52,100.
But it that's exactly right.
Yeah, so,
No, wait a minute, I've got a line item in the tax dollars we receive for that.
I think that's what it is. They put, at the request of the volunteer fire department, there were some positions, and that came forward. If you remember, that was the very last tail end on their sheet, saying these are requests from Girdwood as well as, and it was from the departments themselves, not this department, but they wanted that included in their budget, so that they could get the tax dollars for it. And so there was, I think, was it 2 or was it 1.5 positions?
it said 2.
Two
Yeah,
positions, I couldn't
2
remember.
half-time, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, so I think that's what it is. Now, when you say so in their budget, I mean, their budget includes paying the volunteer fire department. So I think that's how it's wrapped up in there, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't be FTEs.
Right.
Municipal employees, they
Right,
would be
they're not
increasing the
municipal
contract
employees,
to fund these
Right.
positions that you guys hire.
Well,
But why
so-
is it 2 halftime? We're hiring the training officer.
We requested an increase in EMS funding for this next year's budget. And part of the rationale for that was half of the position that we're interviewing now, because that person is gonna be a daytime EMS responder.
So that's probably why it said 2 half-time.
But,
Okay,
but
so
I
they
don't
weren't
know
for
why
the
two.
accounting issues.
Well, maybe the other one is Girdwood.
Well, it said for Trugat, it was specific.
Okay, I don't know, Elsie,
Cause I
I'm
looked
sorry.
at it again this morning just to make sure I got
Yeah.
it right.
That's a question I need to ask Alicia.
And, yeah,
I
and,
guess.
yeah.
Is that,
You wanna pull the page in the fire department
Yep.
budget that shows it? Yeah.
okay, thank
Hi,
you.
come on in.
Hey,
Chief might know.
Hey, yeah, Chris, so in the request from Chugat Volunteer Fire Department, they requested some positions, in their EMS. Do you remember exactly how they planned on using them and what it was?
To hire a person to be a trainer and also a catch-all.
Yeah, that's.
Was it
Predominant-
one full-time or a part-time?
One full-time.
'Cause I
Basically,
saw-
The
Half
language
out of
said
fire,
2 half-time.
But half of it
Oh,
might
wait,
be
there's
training
what he
and.
said, half out of fire?
Half paid out of fire and half
Half
paid
out
out
of-
of
okay, yeah,
EMS,
okay.
Because that's basically how they figure they're gonna use their time.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's gonna be 2 additional,
no, one additional.
well, I mean, 2 half-time, 1 full-time.
Right.
If you wanna look at it like that.
Yes, we are, yeah.
Right.
That's the one we're interviewing now.
Okay, excellent, that should help. And so, Chris, thanks for being
Sorry I'm
here.
late.
Sorry, that's okay, we, already went through the audit with internal audit, and then, Ms. Osiander had some comments around, the fire department's opportunity to comment.
Chief, you're just in time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just specific to the audit, I think that we went out and talked to the Board of Supervisors and their chief, Virginia McMichaels, and, you know, I think they accepted very well, I would say, what you guys had to say, and said,
Yep.
yeah, we know that, and there's working on corrections in the short version of the story. And I guess I would say you can't get better than that. I think I don't think there was anything they said, you know, no, we don't agree with that, or anything else. I think they recognize it and are gonna correct it. And I think part of what they're thinking is this person, if they can hire them, because it's been difficult to hire, is gonna solve the checks and balances part of the audit.
I would say, you know, listening to what Debbie had indicated as well as what was written, you know, haven't been a treasurer and still a treasurer on one of these nonprofit boards. I think, number one, you know, the countersigning by somebody on the board is very, very important, and, you know, that's what we instituted. I think the other thing is hiring an outside company. There's at least 2 or 3 of them out there that do a real good job. CITC does a real good job as well. And in fact, they do an awful lot of nonprofits in town. But having an outside entity come in and keep the books, give you your reports, I would encourage you to, at least until you get through this, to go monthly. As a board, looking at the financials monthly. And, you know, when you pay these firms to come in, they'll go ahead and present to you as a board. Now, who do they respond to? You know, that's questionable. Do they respond to the fire chief or do they respond to the board? My recommendation is that they respond to the board. The outside firm that you've hired.
Can I ask you a question, George? Right now, the only way we can really, Virginia has access to some muni record. All our financials are within the muni system. But Alicia's the person. I mean, any financial question we have, we go to her. So if we got this contract with an external, is there still gonna be access? So, I mean, how does that work?
Absolutely, but I think that what George, this group would come in and audit your books, they would do what these guys did. They would do it once.
No, I think what you want is, you want a bookkeeper. You wanna hire a firm to do bookkeeping. Isn't that what I heard you say?
Well, okay, we think we've done that in this Tanya Hooper.
Right, okay. So she is your bookkeeper, and my only recommendation is that she responds to the board and not to the fire chief.
Okay.
Because you wanna keep this thing clean, and technically, you know, you guys are on the hook, and so that's probably who this person should be reporting to.
Okay.
So, but I think, you know, all the things you outlined there are all the things that, you know, need to be done to correct the situation.
Okay.
Do they use PeopleSoft? Does that organization use PeopleSoft as its accounting system?
We use the muni system.
Okay.
So
you're
Virginia
using-
has access to the muni system and she works with Alicia. and
But,
that's.
but they don't process their money. We cut them a check quarterly, and they put it into a separate bank account that they then spend out of.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going, is
Okay,
I
so
don't-
what do you use, QuickBooks or?
I'm not the person to answer that, I'm sorry. You want me to call Virginia, I can
No,
find
I'm
out.
just trying to understand what system you're using.
I don't know.
Okay.
because they're a nonprofit, private organization that contracts with us. So like any contractor, we make a payment to them, and how they spend that money,
Right,
it's their responsibility through the board of supervisors.
right, but you
I think
have-
it's QuickBooks.
Okay.
Yeah, you looked at it, so you guys know.
And so I just wanna clarify what Alicia's role is, and I know Alicia's very helpful, but, she's gonna be the source of some information, but she does not do the accounting. She doesn't do the auditing of the processes that
Well,
the
most.
volunteers use,
Yeah,
so.
see, but we've been using the main interaction has been the capital, with the building and the truck
Yes.
purchases, and so we've had a whole lot of discussions recently with her on that, cause that's all you guys.
Yes.
So another question, Debbie, does the board have a good set of policies and governance
We're
documents?
working on that, no.
So I mean,
But
like
we're
for
working on that.
P-card, you can like take our policies and use those as a starting point.
Well, we had a separate meeting with purchasing department, because we were having some challenges over some truck purchases, and so now we've got a good understanding of the purchasing process. So that's step one. We're also writing personnel rules, which were non-existent. It's basically been a very, very informal group.
Well, if you need some help getting some nonprofit, personnel rules, internal control policies, and those type of things, I'd be glad to help you, because you might have access to several of them.
I'm more than happy to get it. Thanks, George.
I'm sending you one right now.
Cool.
Done.
And before, I just wanna make one comment. This is a good example of why, it's the audit committee's responsibility when there is an audit done by internal audit to take it a step further and have a meeting. Cause there was some additional information that Debbie mentioned and some really great suggestions mentioned from both Ms. Mahoney and Ms. Vacalis. And these are some of the reasons why we have these audit committee meetings on, specific audits. Amy, do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, Madam Chair, I mean, there's been a lot of things, it looks like the volunteer fire department is obviously moving in the right direction, but I think it would be prudent for them to report back to the audit committee in maybe 4 months or 6 months, whatever you deem appropriate, so we can see what plan they've laid out, what steps they've taken, and if they need help going further, we're here to help them. Whatever you think about that.
I think that's a good idea. George?
Sure.
Thank you.
For a minimum, just write a report.
Yeah, just a
Just write a
follow-up.
I
report.
just wanna, touch base on where we're at, what you've addressed, and what still needs to be addressed.
I guess the way I would look at it is, we're here to help, and so if you think you need additional help, let us know, right? I mean.
No, I agree.
Well, this was why I requested this in the first place. Thank you.
Pete?
A recommendation, if the municipality actually wants to help the volunteer nonprofit do things, they should revise the contract, require a few things.
That's our next subject.
It is all contract compliance, and the municipality can't dictate requirements to them outside the contract.
Correct.
So you're lucky that Debbie's agreeable, but she could've told us to go away.
That's the reason that I couched it like, we're here to help, because right now, until we beefed up that, the only thing that we're really responsible for is giving you the check based on, what that agreement says.
And making sure that the fires are put out by the volunteer.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Right, I appreciate those comments, and that's why the next subject on this agenda is contract review and discussion. And I'll start it out with the fact that, and I looked at this entire contract, but it's old, it's 2007, and all the signatures on it, those folks are no longer involved. And when I talked to Alicia, and I think you too, Chief Bishu, she suggested that you guys were gonna look at the contract and make some revisions to the contract. Do you have any
Yeah,
comments?
we're not following the contract closely right now, and so, yeah, it's been top on our agenda, it's just been, there's so much else to do.
Right.
That we put it off to the beginning of next year.
Right, well, considering the audit findings, and I really appreciate your response, and it's good, I think things are gonna really work out. But considering that, I think the contract really needs to be reviewed and revised sooner than later. That's
So-
just my opinion.
So in regard to that, of course, the current contract expires on the 31st of December of 2018, okay? And that's by agreement of all
Mhm.
parties. But that does not mean that you can't go ahead and go in and revise it, as long as both parties agree that it needs to be revised.
Right.
So, if both parties agree to that, then we can go ahead and go in and
Right.
try to update it and get it fixed.
We're still trying to clarify several things. We're still trying to clarify insurance. We're still trying to clarify workman's comp. Got a call with Chief Chadwick, who is very concerned about workman's costs for volunteers, and the Board of Supervisors is concerned too. So on my to-do list is to sit down with risk management and try to find out what the heck that whole ball of wax is, because that has implications on this contract too. So there's some to-do things before we actually get involved, with that rewrite, but we
Okay.
agree that it's important to do.
Okay. Any comments, Pete?
There's Girdwood is the same situation. There's a Girdwood Volunteer Fire
Oh, yeah.
Department with the Board of Supervisors.
Right, I know,
with a
except I don't have
contract.
the audit in front of
So if
me.
the audit committee is really interested in tightening this up, they should maybe visit that one too. and see.
Well, we.
When's that contract expire? You guys remember?
We have an
The
issue
Girdwood
with workers'
contract,
comp.
I think it's basically run in perpetuity. It says it goes until it doesn't go anymore.
So there was no term?
I don't believe there was with Girdwood.
Should be the
It's all
same,
staying.
should be very
They
similar.
should be a
It's
term.
similar, but a little bit different, because they run their operations a little bit different.
At the same time we audited Shugyak, we also audited Girdwood with the same compliance type issues.
Oh, you did?
You
Yeah,
know,
if
we
you-
did not audit the internal controls. Again, they're a small
Right, right.
nonprofit with a few people, and so, but in the old days, Girdwood was always a sore point. But they've kind of settled down with Chief Chadwick out there. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna look at the contract for the volunteer fire departments, then
Commonsensically,
look
it
at
should
both
look
of
real
them.
similar, yeah.
His previous audit was with both, for the both contracts of both of them.
Yes.
And that was about,
That was at your request when you were in the assembly.
yeah, but that was about 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
Well,
3 or 4 years ago.
might have been
Yeah.
before my time,
Yeah.
otherwise we would have been having a meeting. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so but they're both available, and they both point out some problems with both contracts.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, I wanna thank everybody for being here this morning, and thank you for your work again, Pete, and Debbie, thank you for your work on the Board of Supervisors. So long.